Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Subdivision Review Board on April 21st, 2021 to order. The first item that we're going to do is consider the second item on the new business, which is the Avalon Apartments. I believe we have a request for a continuance.
That is correct. There is a waiver variance request that needs to be included in the packet.
Amy, can you state your name and
sorry,
affiliation for the record?
Sorry, Amy Schaefer with Lee Case, representing the applicant, Avalon Apartments, property owner.
Okay, thank you. We have a request for a continuance on the Avalon Apartments application. Do I have a motion to grant that continuance?
Move to continue.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
Sorry, city attorney.
Mr. Chair, would you mind putting a date on it? I think we're going to May. Is that correct? May 19th?
May 19th.
that-
Thank you. Would you accept that as an amendment to the motion
Absolutely.
and to the second?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The continuance is granted.
Thank you.
At this time, I will ask anybody who thinks they may wish to give testimony today to be sworn in. And please be sure to sign in on the sign-in sheet.
There is, but I'm not sure if he's going to speak. All right, if anyone who wishes to speak, please stand up, raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thanks.
Thank you. The next item that we'll address is consideration of the February 17th, 2021 Subdivision Review Board meeting minutes. I have one correction I believe is in order on these, and I would just ask staff to double check the audio record to make sure that it's correct. On page 4, the fourth full paragraph down in the last sentence, it says the applicant said the pavement width would remain at 2 feet, the same as if it was a vertical curb. I believe that should be 34 feet instead of 2 feet. I would just ask that that be just the curb width. Okay, then I'm sorry. Then I believe the correction, rather than pavement width, would be curb width. But again, if, just maybe double check that that was the intent. I don't have that good of a recollection of the discussion, so. That being a potential correction to the minutes, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve with the correction.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting minutes are approved as noted. I will read a purview statement. The SRB can only consider whether the proposed development meets or exceeds the subdivision code and city technical standards. The SRB cannot consider housing types, cost of proposed unit, occupants, building materials, unit size, number of bedrooms, architectural design of the structures, etc. Staff will introduce the case and the board may ask questions. The applicant may present the case to the board and the board may ask questions. A 10-minute public comment period will follow and can be extended at the discretion of the SRB. This is not a public hearing. If you do speak, please state your name and address for the record. Appeals of the SRB or to the Planning Commission, provided written notice is filed within 20 days of the SRB action. Appeals may be filed by 1, City Council or Planning Commission, 2, the developer, 3, an agreed party withstanding, or 4, persons who are recognized by the Planning Commission by majority vote as having a proven significant interest. Party or parties to an appeal shall be entitled to a de novo hearing before the Planning Commission. With that, we'll move on to our new business item number 1, which is the Life Church. And I'll ask Senior Planner Brian Chambers to present the project to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a preliminary plan for the construction of a public street and utility extensions. This site includes approximately 17 acres of a larger 26.3 acre tract that's currently vacant and currently zoned R15 residential. In April of 2016, this board approved a preliminary plan for a 30,000 square foot religious institution that also included the construction of a private street, utility extension, and stormwater management facilities. That project was never constructed and that approval has since expired. The applicant proposes to construct a new public cul-de-sac street and provide access to this site. The parent tract has frontage on both Independence Boulevard and Carolina Beach Road. The new public street is proposed as a 60-foot private public non-residential collection street with a 36-foot wide drive aisle, type H curb, and 7-foot wide plaza. The applicant proposes to extend water and sewer infrastructure into the subject property to serve the development, and the applicant also proposes stormwater management infrastructure to serve the development. The city's technical standards stipulate that all public and private streets include sidewalks on both sides of the street. The applicant is proposing sidewalk on one side of the street, excuse me, due to the proposed street cross-section wetland crossing, and a waiver is requested. That is all staff has at this time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions for staff at this point?
I have one. Mr. Chambers, at the previous SRB approval, did they request a waiver for sidewalk?
That I do not know. I don't believe so. I believe that was a standard street that went through, but I don't, again, I can't verify that at this time.
Okay. That's all.
Are there any other questions for staff at this point?
Hey, Mr. Chambers, for item number 5, can you clarify that to me just to make sure I understand? The new public street is proposed as a 60-foot private.
Right. That is a typo. That's where you heard me stumble through my presentation. That's where I said public and called myself. It is proposed as a public street built to public standards.
Okay.
And just for the record, I'll note, type H curb is the older designation for the curb. It's maybe better described as vertical curb and gutter. And just ask Brian to confirm that my understanding based on the street cross-section, that is vertical curb and gutter.
Yes, sir.
That's intended, okay. Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay, I'll ask the applicant to present the project. If they have any comments, also please state your name and affiliation for the record. Mark, I'm not sure if the microphone's on.
I'm Mark Hargrove with Port City Consulting Engineers. This project fairly simple. It's a short cul-de-sac road that will serve a future church facility. I think the previous project a few years ago, the church building was going to be in the bigger part of the property. Now it's going to be in the area where the contours are shown. And we'll extend water and sewer, have a pond, go through all the permitting. And that's pretty much it. Be happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Hargrove, your variance request letter gave no details as to the reason for the waiver request. There are code-specific regulations in regards to approving sidewalk variances. Would you care to comment?
By only having sidewalk on the one side, if we had it on both sides, we'd end up having more impacts to wetlands on the, I guess, the lower side. And since the road is stopping right there, we'll have a driveway for the church, and then it's a parking lot. So the sidewalk on the north side would help serve the other property. On the lower side, didn't feel the need to show it. Plus, we'd have less impacts with wetlands.
But you're already impacting wetlands currently.
Yes.
Do you know if the previous project required or requested a variance?
I do not. I wasn't part of that project.
Is there any proposed sidewalk along Independence?
No, I think I think we may have to extend the multi-use path, but our frontage is, with what we're doing, with what the church will have is only 20, 30 feet or something. If I remember right, Brian.
Yeah, I believe there may be a short section of multi-use path to ultimately align with the existing multi-use path that was installed for Woodfield Apartments. The approach in the driveway will have to accommodate multi-use path connections on the east and west of that driveway. But it's a relatively short or narrow frontage there.
Did the TRC consider adding any sort of handicap ramp access to the Independence connection or crosswalk?
I'm not sure I'm following you.
Where the street connects into the property from Independence, was there any discussion of adding a crosswalk along that connection?
I think that would be a required improvement. They would have to, there would be an approach on each side that would allow for multi-use path connections on either side, and that would have to be ADA compliant, and I believe a crosswalk would be required.
Okay, so that'll be handled during TRC.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So just to clarify, there would be out at where the street intersects with Independence Boulevard, there would be curb ramps for the multi-use path.
Yes.
On either side because of the vertical curb that's there. And
Right.
okay. So anybody that was using the sidewalk on the one side of the road here would be able to go in either direction once they got to Independence Boulevard on the future multi-use path. Right.
That is correct, yes.
And the issue with the wetlands impact is that you've got a wetlands impact, but that would further increase those impacts if you had the sidewalk on both sides. Is that?
Yes, correct. Because the sidewalk would be at the right-of-way line, and by not putting the sidewalk on the southern side, we could, come up back a curve and go ahead and slope down to lessen the impact.
Okay. Are there any other questions of either the applicant or staff at this time?
Based on the diagram on the screen there, approximately how far around the cul-de-sac, just using a clock face ballpark tool, do you think the sidewalk will wrap?
About where the property line comes down.
Okay, so the 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock?
Yeah, about 10 o'clock.
Okay.
I think, that's shown on the plan, I believe,
Yeah, you just can't
on the,
see it. I
on the
think it's
24
drawn
by
in there, you just
36, I
can't
think you can see it, yeah.
see the detail.
Yeah, I think it's terminating just beyond where the property line intersects with the cul-de-sac bulb.
Yeah, because from there, it will, be stubbed into the parking lot and have pedestrian ways to get to the church.
Okay. Any other questions for either staff or the applicant?
Where's the future driveway proposed off of this cul-de-sac bulb?
It'll be about 9 o'clock on the cul-de-sac. Pretty much about where I think there may be a dimension or something shown. I think where that 50 foot radius is for the right of way, that's where the driveway would be.
Okay, that's the upper dimension shown on that plan on the screen.
But we had, with the cul-de-sac, I had worked with Eric trying to get the cul-de-sac and the driveway figured out, Eric in engineering.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll consider the variance first. Do I have a motion to approve, conditionally approve, or deny the variance request for providing sidewalk on both sides of the proposed public street to allow this applicant to? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for the catch. I will open the public comment period at this time. Anybody that wishes to speak, please state your name and address for the record. Seeing as how there's no one from the public that wishes to speak, I will close the public comment period. And yes, City Attorney.
Mr. Chair, just before we go into the discussion and voting phase, let me just have Captain Bentfield put one thing on the record. Just talking with him before the meeting, it was my understanding that he had some prior involvement with this project for the city, but it's my understanding that that did not involve any communication with the applicant. It was part of his role as the fire department, but I told him I would just put that on the record for the voting started, just so that was disclosed to the subdivision review board.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is that correct, Captain?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll consider the first and only variance, which is a variance for providing sidewalk on only one side of the street. Do I have a motion to approve, conditionally approve, or deny the variance request to allow the applicant to place sidewalk on only one side of the street.
I'll move to approve that variance based on the impact of the wetlands, but I do have a condition for the board to consider. Is in the future that the small parcel between, or the small area between Independence and that wetland along the front, that little small narrow area, if that does ever develop, that sidewalk would be installed.
Okay.
But I think due to the wetland impacts, as well as the narrowness of that parcel along that side, I think it's warranted for the waiver.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? The variance is granted with the caveat that if the small piece of land is ever developed, that sidewalk would be provided on the southern side, on the Independence Boulevard side of the southern leaning area. Now we'll consider the application itself. Do I have a motion to approve, conditionally approve, or deny the application?
I'll move to approve the SRV case today with the conditions listed in the staff report for the project.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The application is conditionally approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just ask the city attorney if there's any additional new business.
I do have one item for the board to consider. It is not quasi judicial in nature. It involves a rule change in order to bring us into compliance with what will be current state law in July. And I'll give a real short presentation on that if you'll hear from me. And I forgot to say at the beginning that we do have a quorum present, so I'll make that note now, that we did have a quorum present for the entire meeting. But at the beginning of the meeting, I passed out a couple of documents to each of you. They are a red line version of our current SRB rules that have been adopted by City Council back in 2017. And then there's a cleaner copy that has the changes reflected in it. Just a short summary of what's going on is the North Carolina legislature put into place 160D, which affects municipalities last summer. And they gave cities approximately a year to come into compliance with that. During that time, planning staff's been working hard on a land division code complete rewrite. The draft's been completed, but the editing process of that will put us past the deadline, so it won't be in place at that point in time. So there were a few mandates in 160D that we need to make to all the boards across the city, Subdivision Review Board being one of them, to reflect what's required by the statute. They're relatively minor. The first is we need to put an oath requirement in there. That language is reflected on the second page in section 6. It's just a one sentence addition. It reads, "No SRB member shall begin their duties until he/she has taken the oath of office." And then after that, the remaining paragraphs of that section in Article 2 would just be renumbered. The other change appears in that same location, but in section, what is going to be numbered 10. And the city is just requesting that the current law status of the conflict of interest language just be added in there. That old language has been in there for a while, and the first sentence is good, but then the part in red just mirrors what's included in the statute in 160D for quasi judicial decisions, and all of the decisions made by this board are quasi judicial. So that just outlines in a little more detail the conflict of interest standard. Other than that, the only change is on the first page, and that's just changing the statutory reference from what was 160A, Article 19, to it'll be changed to reflect the current law, which will be 160D, Article 8. So those are the three revisions that are needed to be made in order to bring our rules, your rules, into compliance with 160D. And we're required to make those changes by July the 1st. So in order to have this processed through this board and then ultimately onto city council to vote on your recommendation, I'm requesting that y'all go ahead and take a vote on that today so that we can have this before city council in June. That would be my request.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
I do apologize. If you look at the last page, neglected to change that year. It appears as 2017. I would just ask if Madam Clerk Amy could make a handwritten change on her copy to make that reflect today's date and also 2021. And then I think we're good to go ahead and proceed with a vote on that. And thank you for bearing with me on that speech.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Do I have a motion? We would be adopting these revised rules of procedure for subdivision review board. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second, but I want to clarify the two changes in Article 5 to reflect 2021 instead of 2017. There are two blanks that reference 2017 in that section.
All right, thank you. You accept that as amendment to the motion?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any discussion?
Jeff, that's a good point. I think we need to put the date in the first blank and the year. The second blank would stay blank, but need to be changed to 2021. And that'll reflect when it goes before council. Thank you. Thanks. Good catch.
Yeah.
Okay. So today's date would be shown at the bottom of that page. So,
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's correct. And then the date would remain blank on the top of the following page, but the year would be changed.
right, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those rules are adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there any other business from staff for the subdivision review board today? Being none, I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Meeting is adjourned.